Welcome to Washington Today on C-SPAN Radio for Thursday, December 26, 2024. A Russian government spokesperson says there must be an investigation before determining what caused the deadly crash of an Azerbaijan Airlines plane. But a U.S. official and aviation experts are saying the evidence is pointing to a Russian anti-aircraft missile and the operators mistaking the civilian plane for a Ukrainian military drone. Russia's foreign minister says his country is ready to talk to the incoming Donald Trump administration about potential solutions to the conflict in Ukraine, and he hopes President Trump will understand what he calls the root causes. President-elect Trump says he'll be nominating Kevin Marino Cabrera, a Republican commissioner in Miami-Dade County, Florida, as U.S. ambassador to Panama. This comes after Donald Trump has been threatening Panama to take back the Panama Canal unless there's a reduction in transit fees. We'll hear from the nominee on Latin American policy. Former Democratic presidential candidate Marianne Williamson launches a campaign to become Democratic National Committee chair, saying, "I want to help people connect with the political issues that are going on in their lives in a very real and personal way." And there's a holiday trifecta this week: Kwanzaa, Christmas, and Hanukkah. We'll hear messages from leaders of all stripes, elected, appointed, and in one case, inherited. Story from News Nation. U.S. officials tell News Nation evidence indicates Russian air defenses downed the Azerbaijan Airlines plane that crashed in Kazakhstan on Wednesday, killing 38 of the 67 people on board. The U.S. officials added that if the preliminary information proves to be true, it would further underscore Russian recklessness in its invasion of Ukraine. The Russian government on Thursday warned against spreading hypotheses about the cause of the crash. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov telling reporters the investigation is underway, and until investigators make their conclusions, it would be incorrect to make any kind of hypothesis. So we cannot do it, and nobody should do it. We must await the end of this investigation. Azerbaijan observed a nationwide day of mourning on Thursday. National flags were lowered across the country. Traffic across the country stopped at noon, and signals were sounded from ships and trains. That was from News Nation. It was on Wednesday, when the news broke of the crash, that Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed condolences.
Before we begin our work, unfortunately, I have to say a few words about the tragedy that happened today in Aktau. There was a plane crash. There are victims. Some people died, they were injured as well, and on your behalf, as we've just said, would like to express our condolences to the families and friends of the victims. We hope that those who were injured recover quickly. An airplane of the Russian Emergencies Ministry is leaving for this place with bringing equipment and medical supplies.
The Russian President Vladimir Putin on Wednesday at the start of a CIS conference. That audio from Sputnik News. Matthew Borey, Chief Intelligence Officer at the aviation security firm Osprey Flight Solutions, was interviewed today on CNN.
The information that Osprey's evaluated looks not just at the damage from the videos of the crash site or the fuselage externally and internally, but also the security environment in the airspace over southwest Russia during the time after this aircraft took off from Baku in Azerbaijan. While it was over southwest Russia in the North Caucasus Federal District, Russian military air defenses were reportedly engaging Ukrainian military-grade weaponized drones that had been launched, presumably at Chechnya. During this time period, the aircraft was bound for Grozny Airport in the capital of Chechnya, and effectively was in the air at the same time as this Russian military air defense activity was occurring to defend against a Ukrainian drone attack. Now, the reports are from some of the passengers that were on board the aircraft is that an explosion was heard outside of the aircraft and shrapnel penetrated through the fuselage into the cabin of the aircraft. There's video from while the aircraft was still in flight showing shrapnel damages inside the aircraft, and then the video of the wreckage shows shrapnel damage to the tail, vertical stabilizer, and horizontal stabilizer sections of the aircraft as well. So combining the fact that there was a drone attack being repelled by air defenses in the vicinity of where this aircraft was attempting to land, and the damage that was sustained in flight and visible after the crash points to a Russian surface-to-air missile being launched at this aircraft while it was attempting to land at Grozny. This has been not only highlighted by Osprey, our company, but Azeri media outlets are quoting unnamed Azeri government officials. Reuters has also reported that it is confirmed from sources that a Russian air defense system shot the aircraft down. Euronews has reported the same, that it has spoken to sources indicating a Russian air defense system downed this aircraft. And Ukraine, who supposedly launched the drones at Russia, has said that Russia shot down the aircraft. So while there are denials or calls for an investigation to be completed before assigning the cause of the crash, all evidence that's being made public at present points to this being a misidentification and shoot down of a civilian airliner.
Matthew Borey, Chief Intelligence Officer of Osprey Flight Solutions, an aviation security company, interviewed today on CNN. President-elect Donald Trump's special envoy for Ukraine and Russia, Keith Kellogg, is condemning Russia's attack on Christmas, using nearly 200 missiles and drones targeting Ukraine's energy infrastructure. He writes on X, "Christmas should be a time of peace, yet Ukraine was brutally attacked on Christmas Day. Launching large-scale missile and drone attacks on the day of the Lord's birth is wrong. The world is closely watching actions on both sides. The U.S. is more resolved than ever to bring peace to the region." President Joe Biden also putting out a statement that reads in part, "In recent months, the United States has provided Ukraine with hundreds of air defense missiles, and more are on the way. I have directed the Department of Defense to continue its surge of weapons deliveries to Ukraine, and the United States will continue to work tirelessly to strengthen Ukraine's position in its defense against Russian forces." Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said today at a news conference in Moscow that Russia is open to improving relations with the U.S. with the incoming Donald Trump administration.
The United States is quite consistent in what they say, but now we hear signals from the Trump team that they are interested in resuming dialogue, which is sound and normal, absolutely, even if countries are at loggerheads, maintaining dialogue and getting to know each other's positions is the gist of diplomacy, and diplomats continue their intercourse even during wars. So if the messages that we can hear from the new Washington team to restore the dialogue that was cut off by Washington after the start of a special military operation. If all of that is in earnest, we will respond positively. But the Americans were the ones to sever the dialogue, so the ball is in their course. So if they take into account our legitimate interests in Washington, the dialogue will bear fruits and will not be useless. Otherwise, things will remain as they are.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov at a news conference in Moscow. That audio from Sputnik News referring to the special military operation, the term that the Russian government uses for their invasion of Ukraine. Sergei Lavrov also, in another answer at this news conference, rejected calls from President-elect Trump for a ceasefire in Ukraine versus a long-term solution, saying a truce is a path to nowhere. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken was asked about Russia, the war in Ukraine, and President-elect Trump on MSNBC this morning.
The incoming administration has promised a pretty different approach to that conflict than what the Biden team has done. What more are you trying to do between now and January 20th?
Look, I want to make sure that we're giving the incoming administration and the Ukrainians the strongest possible hand to play going into 2025. The Ukrainians have to make fundamental decisions about carrying on the fight or looking to negotiate and try to bring this to a ceasefire. The fundamental question is whether Russia is prepared to do that and to do that in good faith. But if it moves to that, we want to make sure that the Ukrainians and the Trump administration have the best hand to play to cut the strongest possible deal. And that means trying to reinforce Ukraine's position on the battlefield, making sure that it has the money, that it has the munitions, and that it has the mobilized manpower to carry on. It means continuing to exert maximum pressure on Russia, and Russia is feeling the burden of all of this pressure we've exerted with dozens of other countries over the last 2+ years. Everything that Russia tries to do takes longer, costs more, and is harder to do. And of course, the losses on the battlefield are extraordinary. Putin keeps throwing these young men into a meat grinder of his own making. But I think President Trump, if he, when he comes in, if he wants to move this to an agreement, we want to make sure that he can have a strong hand in any negotiation. And that means reinforcing the Ukrainians. Look, I think, Jonathan, if this gets to a place where there is a ceasefire, and it's a ceasefire that's on just and durable terms, that would be a good thing. But for it to be durable, there has to be some kind of assurance that Russia's not simply going to rest, refit, and reattack in a year, 2 years, 5 years. That's going to be critical. If we get that, Ukraine is on a path to success. It's a country that is standing strongly as an independent country. It was not erased from the map. That's what Putin wanted to do. He's failed. It can stand strongly on its own feet, militarily, economically, democratically. That's the best possible rebuke to Putin. And I know President Trump will want to get a good deal going forward.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken interviewed on MSNBC this morning. Story from the South China Morning Post as footage and images of what might have been the maiden flight of China's sixth-generation fighter jet went viral on Thursday. The country's official military media appeared to tacitly confirm the rumors. Mysterious aircraft bearing a triangular tailless design was seen flying over Chengdu in southwestern Sichuan province in broad daylight, flanked by a fifth-generation J-20 fighter jet, according to video shared on Chinese social media. While the jet, speculated by observers to feature cutting-edge stealth and endurance capabilities, is yet to be officially identified or named, a provincial newspaper made reference to the aircraft. That from South China Morning Post. President Joe Biden today posted a video about his recent hosting in September in his home state of Delaware of the leaders of the Quad, the U.S., Japan, Australia, and India, whose agenda often includes China. Here's part of the video.
A lot's changing around the world, and you've heard me say it 100 times. We're in a situation where we're in a real inflection point in world history. The post-war era is over. It's not going to change. It's not going to be the same. And what's the world going to look like the next 60 years, the next 30 years, the next 40 years? And that's going to depend on what we do now. It's going to shape the world for the next 5-6 decades. And that's what's at stake now. And that's why I think it's so important that the Quad is working out and making sure the Indo-Pacific is safe and secure. We're changing the dynamic in the world. When you have Japan in the north, when you have India in the west, you have Australia in the south, the United States, it's about making sure not to contain China, but make sure the international rules of the road are adhered to. So that's what this is all about. While challenges will come, the world will change, because the Quad is here to stay, I believe.
Last minute of a 3-minute video posted today by President Biden. Nexstar has an article. Before leaving to spend the rest of the holiday in the Virgin Islands, President Joe Biden signed 50 bills into law on Christmas Eve as his time in office comes to an end. Biden signed a bill lobbied by Paris Hilton to protect teenagers living in residential treatment facilities. The bill creates a federal work group on youth presidential programs to oversee the health, safety, and care of minors in rehab and other facilities. The Stop Campus Hazing Act is a bill that requires colleges to disclose hazing incidents reported to campus or local police in their annual security reports, and requires schools to teach students about the dangers of hazing. The president also signed a bill to prevent members of Congress from collecting a congressional pension if they're convicted of public corruption. And Biden signed a new bill that makes the bald eagle the official bird of the United States. Story from Nexstar. President-elect Donald Trump, writes BBC News, has named a Florida lawmaker to be his ambassador to Panama days after he threatened to take back the Panama Canal. Kevin Marino Cabrera, Republican commissioner in Miami-Dade County, worked for Trump's 2020 campaign and this year was Florida's representative to the Republican National Committee. Announcing his pick in a Christmas Day post on his Truth Social network, Trump said Cabrera will do a fantastic job representing our nation's interest in Panama. The president-elect repeated claims that Panama is ripping us off via shipping fees charged to use the Panama Canal, the main link between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. Trump has also said that he did not want the Panama Canal falling into the wrong hands and specifically cited China, which has significant interests in the waterway. That was from BBC News. Kevin Marino Cabrera was one of the speakers at a roundtable on Venezuela with then-President Trump in the summer of 2020 in Doral, Florida. This from C-SPAN's video library.
Mr. President, your campaign and the Republican National Committee are building the largest grassroots movement in American history because of you and your steadfast commitment to always put America first for every American. The Republican Party is growing by the day because Americans know that you're standing up for our freedoms and what makes America great, no matter the criticism. And because of that, the Republican Party is now the party of freedom, thanks to you. As we say here, somos el partido de la libertad. We're the party of freedom because we stand for freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom for the unborn, freedom of commerce, if it's free, fair, and reciprocal trade, freedom at home and abroad. The Hispanic and Latino community in Florida knows the horrors of life without freedom. They've seen firsthand how leaders who value control, not freedom, destroy prosperity, security, and opportunity. That's what happened in Venezuela, in Cuba, in Nicaragua. That's what socialism does. Mr. President, freedom and faith in America are now threatened by the same radical left ideology seen in places like Cuba and Venezuela, as that ideology now controls today's Democrat Party. And the only protector of our American freedom and American greatness is you, Mr. President.
Kevin Marino Cabrera in July 2020 with then-President Trump at a roundtable in Florida focusing on Venezuela from C-SPAN's video library. Cabrera is now President-elect Trump's nominee, soon-to-be nominee, for U.S. Ambassador to Panama. There's a story today from Barron's. Panamanian President Jose Raul Molino on Thursday ruled out negotiations with Donald Trump over control of the Panama Canal, which the U.S. President-elect threatened to demand to be returned to Washington. Molino also rejected the possibility of reducing canal tolls for U.S. vessels and denied that China had any influence over the vital waterway connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. Molino told a weekly press conference, if there is an intention to talk, then there's nothing to talk about. The canal is Panamanian and belongs to Panamanians. There's no possibility of opening any kind of conversation around this reality, which has cost the country blood, sweat, and tears. That was from Barron's. Washington Today continues in a moment.
Witness democracy in action with C-SPAN. Experience history as it unfolds with C-SPAN's live coverage this January. As Republicans take control of both chambers of Congress, and a new chapter begins with the swearing in of the 47th President of the United States. On Friday, January 3rd, don't miss the opening day of the 119th Congress. Watch the election of the House Speaker, the swearing in of new members of Congress and the Senate, and the first day of leadership for South Dakota's John Thune as the new Senate Majority Leader. On Monday, January 6th, live from the House chamber, witness Vice President Kamala Harris preside over the certification of the Electoral College vote, where this historic session will officially confirm Donald Trump as the winner of the 2024 presidential election. And on January 20th, tune in for our live all-day coverage of the presidential inauguration as Donald Trump takes the oath of office, becoming the 47th President of the United States. Stay with C-SPAN throughout January for comprehensive, live, unfiltered coverage of the 119th Congress and the presidential inauguration. C-SPAN. Democracy unfiltered. Created by cable.
Welcome back to Washington Today, available as a podcast on the free C-SPAN Now mobile app and wherever you get your podcasts. Story from NBC News. Marianne Williamson, an author and former Democratic presidential candidate, announced Thursday that she is launching a campaign to become the next chair of the Democratic National Committee. Williamson is the latest candidate and the first woman to jump into the race to succeed outgoing DNC chair Jamie Harrison. She joins a wide field of candidates who previously announced their bids for chair, including former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley, Minnesota Democratic Party Chair Ken Martin, Wisconsin Democratic Party Chair Ben Wickler, New York State Senator James Skoufis, and former Maryland Senate candidate Robert Hooton. Marianne Williamson made her announcement in a video.
On January 20th, 2025, President-elect Trump will once again be President of the United States, plus Republicans will be in control of both the House and the Senate. For those of us who wish to be part of a passionate, fierce, but loyal opposition to what the Republicans are bringing forth in 2025 and beyond, there's a lot for us to think about. I feel that in order for the Democrats to rise like a phoenix from the ashes of our electoral defeat, we need to look at more than just the outer issues such as data analysis and field organizing and fundraising. We need to transform. In a way, we need to reinvent the Democratic Party in order to counter what MAGA is bringing to the table. There's a collective adrenaline rush in all of that, and we have to create our own massive psychological and emotional appeal for the American people. I understand why we lost it. I understand because I've traveled extensively throughout this country, and I've seen how much pain there is out there. I've been up close and personal with people who didn't have health care, who couldn't survive on just one job, who were so depressed about so many of the conditions in their lives that were, in fact, at least indirectly due to bad public policy. And too many of them didn't feel like the Democratic Party had their back. I get how people didn't know that. And today, I am announcing I'm running for DNC chair because I feel that I can bring a level of expertise to the process of lifting up this possibility of victory over the next 2 and 4 years in a way that will not occur if we are only looking traditional means of politicking in order to make that happen.
Marianne Williamson, former presidential candidate, in a video announcing she's entering the race for DNC chair. The Democratic National Committee chair election is expected to be held on February 1st at the party's winter meeting in National Harbor, Maryland. Republican National Committee Chair Michael Whatley is also looking ahead to build on this year's success. Fox News Digital put up their interview with him on Wednesday.
The fundamentals of running and winning an election are the same. You've got to have great candidates who run great races. You got to get out the vote. You got to protect the ballot. Obviously, in this election cycle with President Trump, we had a fantastic candidate who ran a fantastic race. And we were able here from the RNC to work with the state parties to get out the vote and protect the ballot. As we go forward into this next election cycle, the fundamentals are going to remain the same. We need to make sure that we are building our state parties, that we're building our ground game. We're building our election integrity apparatus to be in place to make sure that when we get those candidates through those primaries in 26, that we're going to be in a position to take them all the way to the finish line.
Well, one thing that does change in 26 is you don't have Donald Trump on the ballot anymore, and you're probably going to have traditionally a smaller elected in the midterms. So does that put you at a disadvantage, or will we see then President Trump on the trail with you helping Republicans nonstop?
Yeah, President Trump is going to be a very significant part of this because at the end of the day, what we need to do is hold on to the House, hold on to the Senate so that we can finish his term and his agenda, right? President Trump ran on a very clear, very concise agenda. Restore the southern border, rebuild the economy, keep our communities safe, and make sure that America is strong enough to protect our interests and allies at home and abroad. That is going to be the fundamental mission that we have. So in the House, we want to make sure that we have allies in the House that are going to do that. We want to make sure that we are working with Senator Thune and the Republicans in the Senate to advance that agenda, right? So we're going to need every Republican House member, every Republican Senate member to get done with this agenda. Donald Trump will be very active on the campaign trail for Republicans, and his agenda is the agenda that we're going to be running on.
RNC Chair Michael Whatley in a Fox News Digital interview. Earlier this month, President-elect Donald Trump said in an online post, "I've asked Michael to return as chairman of the RNC to continue to build our party and be a trusted partner as we make America great again and ensure free and fair elections. Republicans everywhere should support him as he continues his mission at the RNC." Wall Street today, the Dow up 28, S&P down 2, NASDAQ down 10. A couple of stories on the economy from Associated Press. Sales rose this year during the holiday shopping season, even as Americans wrestled with elevated prices for many groceries and other necessities. According to new data, holiday sales from the beginning of November through Christmas Eve climbed 3.8%, outpacing the 3.1% increase from a year earlier, according to MasterCard Spending Pulse, which tracks all kinds of payments, including cash and debit cards. The last 5 days of the season accounted for 10% of the spending. And the number of Americans applying for unemployment benefits held steady last week, though continuing claims rose to the highest level in 3 years. Jobless claim applications ticked down by 1,000 to 219,000 for the week of December 21st, the Labor Department reported Thursday. Congressman Andre Carson, Democrat of Indiana, writing on X on this first day of the holiday Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa is celebrated for 7 days each year, acknowledging the 7 principles honoring African-American heritage and fruitful harvests. Let's reflect on these principles: unity, self-determination, collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, purpose, creativity, and faith. That post from Congressman Carson. New York City Mayor Eric Adams, also a Democrat, posted a video on Kwanzaa.
Happy Kwanzaa, New York City. This week-long celebration of African-American heritage and culture brings communities across New York City together. As families and friends gather to light the menorah, we reflect on the principles that binds us: unity, self-determination, collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, purpose, creativity, and faith. These principles reflect the values of our city, but began as a community celebration in response to the brutality African Americans faced during the Civil Rights Movement, has become a clarion call for African Americans and all Americans to build a better, stronger world to leave behind for our children. So this Kwanzaa, let us gather in solidarity and recommit to a better future. Wishing you all a happy and healthy New Year. Happy Kwanzaa.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams in a video. Vice President Kamala Harris writing on X, "When I was growing up, Kwanzaa was a special time of reflection with family and friends. Let us carry the wisdom of the 7 principles with us as we work to build a brighter future. Happy Kwanzaa." And California Governor Gavin Newsom, a Democrat, and his wife Jennifer Siebel Newsom also wishing everyone a happy Kwanzaa in a video.
Kwanzaa is a celebration of Black history and culture, a holiday explicitly focused on bringing people together.
The 7 principles of Kwanzaa are values that we also hold dear in the Golden State: unity, self-determination, collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, purpose, creativity, and faith. In short, Kwanzaa is a reminder to all of us to stay true to ourselves and hold fast to our neighbors.
We're all better off when we're all better off. So as communities across California celebrate Kwanzaa, let it serve as a powerful reminder of our commitment to each other and to building a California where every community and every family can thrive.
So to all who observe this beautiful holiday, we wish you and your loved ones a joyous Kwanzaa.
California Governor Gavin Newsom and Jennifer Siebel Newsom.
Candles are burning low.
The Hasidic Jewish pop rock band Eighth Day entertained Wednesday night on the first night of Hanukkah at the annual lighting of the national menorah on the ellipse south of the White House. Jewish News Syndicate reports that Rabbi Levi Shem Tov, Executive Vice President of American Friends of Lubavitch, emceed the event, which he and his father, Rabbi Abraham Shem Tov, have organized for decades. He told JNS that the turnout and energy at the event show that Jews have not given in amid difficult times. Also speaking Wednesday at the lighting, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, who is Jewish.
Today we begin the celebration of Hanukkah. I draw from the beautiful and profound words of Abigail Pogrebin and Dov Linzer, published just this morning. The glue of the Jewish people for 3,000 years, indeed the key to our survival, despite all those who tried to destroy us, has been the beauty, joy, and rituals of Judaism. We can all benefit from the study of Torah, the mandates to visit the sick, feed the poor, pursue justice, welcome the stranger. There is a yearning for this beauty, this rooted history. We see it in a post-October 7 surge in synagogue attendance, Jewish learning, and communal connection. We can lean into our shared tradition and values as a beacon for what we aspire to. This Hanukkah, let us rededicate ourselves to the light that defines us and the better world we seek to build. On behalf of the President, Dr. Biden, Vice President Harris, and the Second Gentleman, I wish you all a happy Hanukkah.
Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas Wednesday night at the National Menorah lighting near the White House. Other Jewish Biden administration officials on hand included Deborah Lipstadt, State Department Special Envoy to monitor and combat anti-Semitism, and Stuart Eizenstat, State Department Special Advisor on Holocaust issues. Congressman Josh Gottheimer, Democrat from New Jersey, gave holiday greetings in a video posted today.
Hey everyone, this is Josh Gottheimer wishing you and your family a very, very happy Hanukkah. As we gather to light the menorah on this great Hanukkah, we celebrate the triumph of hope and resilience and faith over adversity. Our story is one of courage and determination. The Maccabees stood firm against oppression, reclaiming their freedom and rededicating the Holy Temple. Each year we're reminded of the fact that even in the darkest hour, hope's light can shine through. This year, that message feels more important than ever. As the state of Israel faces ongoing attacks, we stand in solidarity with the Jewish community and with our key democratic ally, Israel. We also are thinking of the hostages, especially the American hostages, who we need to get home. And we need that right now. And Hanukkah reminds us, all of us, that the fight for freedom, safety, and the right to live without fear is a timeless one. So to everybody celebrating, let this season be a time to honor your traditions, cherish your loved ones, and find strength in the light that unites us all. So from my family to yours, Chag Sameach and Happy Hanukkah.
Congressman Josh Gottheimer, Democrat from New Jersey, with that video. The war in the Middle East and other parts of the world, also a theme of the Christmas message from Great Britain's King Charles III. It was released on Christmas Day.
On this Christmas Day, we cannot help but think of those for whom the devastating effects of conflict in the Middle East, in Central Europe, in Africa, and elsewhere pose a daily threat to so many people's lives and livelihoods. We also think of the humanitarian organizations working tirelessly to bring vital relief. After all, the Gospels speak so vividly of conflict and teach the values with which we can overcome it. The example that Jesus gave us is timeless and universal. It is to enter the world of those who suffer, to make a difference to their lives, and so bring hope where there is despair. As the famous Christmas carol, Once in Royal David's City, reminds us, our Savior Holy came down to earth from heaven, lived among the poor and mean and lowly, and transformed the lives of those he met through God's redeeming love. That is the heart of the Nativity story. And we can hear its beat in the belief of all the great faiths, in the love and mercy of God, in times of joy and of suffering, calling us to bring light where there is darkness.
King Charles III of Great Britain, part of his annual Christmas message. He also thanked the selflessness of those who have cared, supported, and comforted him and the Princess of Wales this year through what he said were the uncertainties and anxieties of illness. Thank you for listening to Washington Today. Get more on the stories that are shaping Washington every day by signing up for our daily email, word for word. Go to cspan.org/connect to subscribe. Have a good night.